walked out because I don't, what you praying for? Because you sitting over there like you don't got no remorse. Like every time I walk in, you smiling. You know, this ain't the time for that. This case is sad. This is serious.
It's no secret that YNW Melly has been sitting in serious trouble for years, with the threat of a possible death sentence hanging right above him. The situation has always been intense, but a recent video of him blew up online and had everyone talking. Not because of his rough haircut, but because of how he looked and acted in that footage. So let's break this down. Melly showed up in court again, but to understand what's happening now, we need to roll back to February 2019. Florida rapper YNW Melly, real name Jamel Demons, got arrested and hit with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Investigators claim Melly and his close friend YNW Bortland, real name Cortland Henry, carried out something unthinkable. Authorities say the two allegedly took the lives of their own friends, then tried to make the scene look like a random drive-by shooting. This was wild news at the time, and people could not believe what they were hearing. Jump to June 2023, and Melly is back in the spotlight again, not because of music, but because of his high-stakes trial. He entered a not guilty plea, standing firm that he did not commit the crime, but then things took a twist. The judge called a mistrial. Even with that shocking moment, the case didn't end, not even close. Melly was set to return to court in the fall, and if he ended up convicted, he could face the death penalty. During one of his more recent appearances, he walked in with his usual smile, acting calm for the cameras. But it was a moment from last year's trial that really went viral. He seemed to be praying and then suddenly blew a kiss. The mother of one victim saw this and instantly walked out, saying it felt disrespectful. Recently, Melly's legal team filed a motion trying to block certain phone recordings from being used in court. These calls were between Cortland Henry, YNW Bortland, and his girlfriend, Avela Molina, but the defense says the conversations were just basic personal chatter with no meaning. According to court documents shared by Hip Hop DX, the defense argues the calls are irrelevant, pure small talk, and should count as inadmissible hearsay, meaning they shouldn't be used against Melly at all. Now let's talk about where Melly is being held. He was moved from Broward County Jail to the Paul Rain Detention Facility in Pompano Beach, Florida. This place is maximum security, with tight control, limited movement, and visits happening through a thick window with an old-school built-in phone. It's definitely a tougher spot to sit in while waiting for trial. Back in January, Judge John J. Murphy III pushed to get things moving, saying the retrial for the deaths of YNW Sack Chaser, Anthony Williams, and YNW Juvie, Christopher Thomas Jr., would begin on March 5th, or as soon as the court could take it. The judge even pointed out that Melly had already been locked up for over 750 days, waiting for the case to restart. Even with that pressure, the retrial still hasn't begun, leaving everyone on edge because the stakes are sky high with a possible death sentence on the table. Here's the wild part. Just 1 month before everything fell apart, this kid from Gifford, Florida was blowing up fast. At 19 years old, Melly dropped his mixtape, We All Shine, featuring none other than Kanye West. His song, Murder on My Mind, was rising like crazy and went gold, later becoming certified 6 times multi-platinum. Back in October 2018, Melly, Sack Chaser, Juvie, Christopher Thomas Jr., and Cortland Henry, YNW Bortland, were all hanging out at a recording studio. But later that night, Williams and Thomas ended up shot and killed. Bortland drove them to the hospital and claimed it was a drive-by attack, but the story didn't match the evidence at all. Things got even stranger when Melly and Bortland appeared in a music video the very next day, acting like nothing had happened. Then on February 13th, 2019, Melly was officially arrested. Investigators say Melly was the one who fired the shots and Bortland helped cover it up. This case has been one of the most talked about trials in hip-hop history, and it's only getting more intense. If things go the wrong way for YNW Melly, he could end up facing life in prison or even the death penalty. Even with all that pressure, he kept posting online, insisting he's innocent and saying things like, "A lot of rumors and lies are being said," ending it with, "God is with me though." The post later got deleted, but it showed he was trying to stay strong through everything. Melly's been dealing with some heavy charges, but his energy hasn't faded, especially with the love he keeps getting from people in hip-hop. One major name standing behind him is Atlanta superstar Future, who showed public support on Melly's 20th birthday. Future posted, "Free my little brother Melly," on his Instagram story, putting Melly front and center in front of millions. On the other side, the family of YNW Sack Chaser is firm in their belief that the legal process should take its course and they're not holding back. They told TMZ they fully support whatever the state of Florida decides. Their rep even said, "If the state of Florida feels the death penalty is warranted in this case, then we 100% fully support it." YNW Melly should feel the exact fear and panic he so viciously and consciously brought upon his innocent victims. That statement shook a lot of people because of how strong it was. Now let's get into the evidence the state used in the first trial. Prosecutors brought out digital messages they claimed were a confession. They pointed to an Instagram convo from October 26, 2018, between Melly and PZ Gambino. PZ asked if Melly was okay, and Melly allegedly replied, "I did that shh." Melly's lawyer, Stuart Adelstein, pushed back and pointed out that Melly usually wrote "dat" instead of "that" in messages. But prosecutor Christine Bradley countered with receipts, showing times Melly actually spelled the word the standard way, even in his song, "Melly Fix That." Prosecutors also argued the bullets came from inside the car, not outside like a drive-by. Surveillance footage showed Melly and his crew hopping into a Jeep before the deadly shots. When police found the Jeep later, Anthony Williams, YNW Sack Chaser, and Christopher Thomas Jr., YNW Juvie, were already gone from gunshot wounds. Ballistics suggested the shots were fired from inside the vehicle, right from the area where Melly was sitting. Even though the firearm was never located and no gunpowder residue was found on Melly, investigators said the evidence didn't match a drive-by at all. At one point, the prosecution brought in gang expert Danny Polo to testify about Melly's alleged ties to the G-Shine Bloods. Polo claimed Melly understood the codes, the signs, and used gang-style language in messages. The state even showed photos and texts they said supported the idea that the murders might have had a gang connection, though they didn't clearly outline what the supposed gain would be. Phone data became another big part of the case. FBI Special Agent Brendan Collins used cell tower pings to track the movements of the phones belonging to Melly and Cortland Henry on the night of the incident. He explained the phones were near the crime area, but he couldn't prove they were side by side every second. Miramar Police Detective Mark Moretti testified that no phone showed a direct location at the exact crime spot because Melly's location services were turned off. But surveillance cameras filled in some gaps, including footage showing Melly getting picked up by Baton Rouge rapper Fredo Bang afterward. BSO DNA analyst Kurt Rhodes tested items found inside the Jeep, a water bottle, shell casing, and other surfaces. But none showed a clean match to Melly's DNA. However, he did say there was DNA that might be Melly's on the rear passenger door handle, which is where investigators believe the shots were fired from. Florida prosecutors just made a bold and risky move. They want to bring a massive stack of YNW Melly's lyrics into his retrial as evidence. According to the Miami Herald, Broward County prosecutor Alexandra Buckaloo filed paperwork listing a huge collection of Melly's material they want the jury to see. We're talking 55 songs, 18 audio files, 14 YouTube videos, and 4 album covers all lined up and ready to be used in court. One of the biggest pieces they want to include is Melly's massive hit, "Murder on My Mind." The track blew up years before the case, but because of the timing and the tone, prosecutors believe it could help paint a picture of Melly's mindset. They claim these lyrics might show motive or explain Melly's emotional state leading up to the incident, which could seriously sway the jury. Using rap lyrics in trials isn't new, but it's one of the most controversial tactics in the legal world. Lyrics can't be the main reason someone gets convicted, but they can create a strong emotional reaction in jurors, especially if people walk into the courtroom with stereotypes about rappers already in their heads. That's why critics say this method sometimes pushes bias more than it proves facts. You don't have to look far to see how big of a problem this can be. Take the YSL Ryko case, for example. Prosecutors used Young Thug's lyrics to claim he was involved in more than 10 acts tied to a conspiracy. That case showed just how blurry the line gets between art and real life, and a lot of people said these tactics unfairly target hip-hop artists who use storytelling and exaggeration in their music. In that YSL indictment, Young Thug, Gunna, and more than 24 people from the Young Slime Life crew got hit with a massive set of gang-related charges. The 88-page indictment labeled YSL as a criminal street gang and listed 182 acts, including wearing slime-themed colors or accessories, as actions that supposedly supported the conspiracy. Prosecutors even said all 28 defendants violated Georgia's RICO laws by engaging in a pattern of illegal behavior meant to make money and gain influence. One of the most debated parts? Rap lyrics from a bunch of artists, including a posthumous Juice WRLD track, were used as evidence. 6 defendants, including Young Thug himself, ended up heading to trial, which kicked off on November 27 in Atlanta and is expected to drag on for most of the year. This isn't the first time lyrics were dragged into a courtroom either. Back in 2012, a Louisiana judge allowed lyrics from Lil Boosie during his murder trial. In 2014, when Bobby Shmurda was arrested on gang charges, his hit Hot got put under a microscope, even though it wasn't officially used as evidence. Shmurda later said, "I'm guilty for where I live. I was never part of no gang," telling the world how fast people assume things when a rapper makes street music. In 2019, prosecutors used lyrics from Draco the Ruler to accuse him of murder, and that same year, 6ix9ine's lyrics were brought up during his gang-related case. Every one of these moments shows how quickly art can get twisted once it enters a courtroom. Now that prosecutors want to drop dozens of Melly songs into his retrial, people are divided again. Some think it helps explain the case, while others believe it's unfairly targeting a rapper's creative work. Either way, this retrial is gearing up to be intense, and the courtroom is about to hear a lot more than testimony. Even though Boosie and Draco the Ruler were both acquitted, critics still argue that using rap lyrics as evidence can tilt a jury in an unfair way and hit Black and brown artists the hardest. When Maryland's highest court ruled in December 2020 that rap lyrics could be used in a murder trial, veteran attorney Dina LaPolte told Variety the ruling was blatantly racist and extremely dangerous. Last year, Jay-Z and several major artists backed Senate Bill S-7527, also known as Rap Music on Trial, a New York bill meant to protect rap as artistic expression. The goal is simple: stop prosecutors from twisting lyrics into evidence when there's no real-world connection. The bill argues that using someone's music to decide guilt turns a trial into a judgment of their creativity instead of the actual facts. The bill passed committee at the end of January and moved forward toward a full Senate and Assembly vote. State Senator Brad Hoylman, who sponsored the bill, told Fox 5 New York that the legislation was designed to stop courts from using art as a shortcut to claim someone has criminal intent. This proposal made major progress on October 12, 2021, after passing through the Senate Codes Committee, marking its first major leap toward becoming law. Jay-Z pushed hard for this change too. His attorney Alex Spiro said, "This is an issue that's important to Jay-Z and all the artists trying to make this change. Mr. Carter is from New York, and if he can lend his name and weight to this, that's exactly what he wants to do." Spiro told Rolling Stone that he co-wrote the bill with Eric Nielsen, co-author of Rap on Trial, alongside law professor Andrea Dennis. Spiro added that he and Jay-Z have fought before for fairness in the industry, including pushing for more racial diversity in arbitration panels, which later led to national reforms. He said the new bill could become a blueprint for the entire country. "When you change the law here, you help the cases in this state, but you also send a message that progress is coming." Fat Joe also backed the cause, telling Rolling Stone in 2022, "Our lyrics are creative expression and entertainment just like any other genre. We want our words recognized as art, not weaponized in court." Before his tragic passing in 2021, Los Angeles rapper Draco the Ruler lived through this exact problem. Even though he was acquitted in a 2016 murder case, he spent 3 years locked up while prosecutors used the lyrics from his freestyle, Flex Freestyle, to claim he planned an attack, even though investigators said he wasn't the shooter. Draco later said, "I didn't even think they could do that. It didn't make no sense. It was just crazy." Senator Jamal Bailey explained the purpose of the bill clearly. New York wants to stop this practice by requiring a real, factual link between the art and the crime before lyrics can even be mentioned in a courtroom. He said relying on music to assume guilt goes against fundamental legal principles and feeds old stereotypes that unfairly connect hip-hop with criminal behavior. Now, after 750 days behind bars without a completed trial, YNW Melly's situation reflects just how slow the system can move. His case looked strong from the prosecution side, but constant delays kept stacking up. Melly's lawyers pushed for him to get released on bond, but prosecutors fought back hard, saying the charges were too serious and the risk too high. In the end, the judge agreed with the state, and Melly stayed locked up, waiting for his future to be decided. Why did everything drag out so long? The case is extremely complex, and both sides spent months gathering evidence and preparing arguments. Then COVID-19 hit, throwing courts nationwide into chaos and slowing everything even more. Melly remaining in jail without a finished trial became a huge debate online. Supporters argued he should be released while he waited, while others said the charges were too serious for that kind of risk. Some people even compared the delays to the legal troubles of rapper Tay-K, but most of those comparisons don't really line up. To keep things clear and safe, Tay-K's situation is often misunderstood, so here's a very simplified version without the sensitive details. Tay-K was a young artist who got caught in a serious legal case and was put on restricted release while waiting for court. Instead of staying under those conditions, he ran off and documented parts of his life through music and social media, turning his escape into a viral moment that shocked the entire country. His case later became a cautionary story about how fast a rising artist's life can go off track when legal trouble comes into play. Tay-K's story is often brought up to show how complicated and messy criminal cases involving artists can get, especially when music, image, and public perception start clashing with the legal system. While Tay-K was on the run, the public story surrounding him took an even darker turn when authorities connected his name to a deadly situation in San Antonio, Texas. Reports at the time claimed he was linked to a confrontation involving Mark Anthony Saldivar, which investigators said escalated during a dispute tied to a drug deal. These allegations added another serious charge to the growing legal storm that surrounded him, even though the full details remained tangled in conflicting accounts and witness statements. During that chaotic period, Tay-K released The Race, a track that captured his defiant mindset while he was avoiding police. The music video, which showed him posing next to a wanted poster, went viral instantly, turning him into an internet name overnight. The song became a symbol of rebellion to some fans, but it also reminded the public of the real lives affected by the events tied to his charges. Tay-K's time on the run ended when U.S. Marshals captured him in Elizabeth, New Jersey, bringing a close to a saga that had the entire country watching. But his legal battles were far from finished. In July 2019, a Texas jury found him guilty of murder and aggravated robbery related to a separate home invasion case, a situation involving older individuals and adult defendants, which the court treated extremely seriously. He received 55 years for the murder conviction, plus additional sentences for robbery charges. Months later, in November 2019, he faced another indictment in connection with the death of Mark Saldivar. Prosecutors warned that if they underestimated the risk and allowed defendants in similar cases to walk free, the situation could spiral out of control, which is exactly why they refused to take chances with YNW Melly. Some even argued that releasing Melly on bond could create another high-profile runaway scenario, and no judge wanted to relive anything close to that. Melly's long stretch in pretrial detention, more than 750 days, has sparked massive debate and non-stop media coverage. Many people question how fair the system is, especially when the defendant is famous and the charges are severe. Supporters say Melly is being punished before a verdict is even reached, while others believe the seriousness of the allegations requires extreme caution. Legally, the delay has allowed Melly's defense team more time to build a strong case. Personally, though, it's meant dealing with harsh jail conditions and the non-stop mental pressure of not knowing what comes next. The situation has also frozen his entire career. No touring, no recording, no momentum, right when he was rising fast. His fans haven't stayed quiet either. They launched hashtags like #FreeMelly, petitions, and campaigns demanding he be released on bond and given a fair trial. They argue the justice system should not treat him like he's already guilty. Meanwhile, critics say the charges are too serious to risk letting him out, pointing to public safety and the rights of the victims' families. Media outlets and true crime podcasts have fed the frenzy around Melly's case, diving deep into every detail and fueling endless comparisons to other high-profile cases like Tay K's. Melly's status as a successful artist mixed with the intense accusations has kept this case glued to the headlines. People fear that if Melly were released, he might flee or get caught up in more trouble, even if that risk is small. His fame adds an extra layer of concern, since influence and visibility can make tracking a defendant harder once they're out. Judges know this, and the decision to deny bond shows how seriously they're taking the situation, especially with the stakes as high as they are. The ripple effect from Melly's extended detention goes far beyond his personal situation. It sparked deeper discussions about balancing the rights of defendants with the safety of the community. Criminal justice reform advocates point to Melly's case when bringing up bail reform and the harsh realities of pretrial detention facilities. As the case crawls closer to trial, the divide between supporters and critics only grows bigger. His fans demand his release, while others insist the charges justify keeping him behind bars until the final verdict. The media continues tracking every twist and turn, feeding the public's nonstop curiosity about what comes next. In court, judges must consider several big factors, and Melly's charges fall into the most serious category. First-degree murder can mean life in prison or even the death penalty, which automatically makes judges more cautious about granting bond. Another major factor is how strong the prosecution's case appears. If the evidence looks convincing enough to suggest a high chance of conviction, the court is much more likely to keep a defendant in custody. In Melly's situation, all these elements collide. Serious charges, intense public attention, complex evidence, and huge legal stakes, creating a legal battle unlike almost anything the music world has seen. Judges take bond decisions seriously, especially when they fear a defendant might influence witnesses, mess with evidence, or get caught up in more trouble if released. That concern plays a huge role in cases like Melly's, where every move is watched closely. Denying bond can also be a strategic play. Keeping Melly in custody gives prosecutors leverage, pushing him toward a plea deal or cooperation if they think it could help seal the case without rolling the dice on a jury trial. Being stuck in jail affects the entire process too. It limits how much Melly can talk with his legal team, slows down his access to resources, and makes it harder for him to collect anything that could help his defense. That pressure can force the defense to push for a faster trial date, even when rushing might not actually be in their favor. Public perception is another major factor. With a high-profile case like Melly's, the court knows every decision will be judged by millions online. Granting bond to someone accused of an extremely serious crime could trigger outrage and make people think the justice system isn't taking things seriously. Denying bond, on the other hand, shows a strong stance on public safety, though critics argue it still feels like punishment before a verdict even exists. About 1,500 miles away in California, a similar conversation happened during Suja Knight's case. Knight's defense, led by attorney Thomas Mesereau, pushed hard for bond, bringing up his medical problems and saying he wasn't getting the care he needed in jail. They argued he wasn't a flight risk because he had deep roots in the community and family nearby. Knight's team also insisted that being locked up kept him from working, which caused huge financial problems and made it harder to manage his own legal affairs. Prosecutors fired back just as hard. They pointed to Knight's long criminal history, past violent behavior, and claims that he had previously intimidated witnesses. They argued that releasing him would be dangerous and could interfere with the entire case. They portrayed Knight as someone who could easily disrupt the justice process if he walked out of jail. After hearing both sides, the judge set Knight's bond at $25 million, one of the biggest bond amounts in California history. His lawyers said it was basically the same as denying bond outright, and eventually the court lowered it to $10 million. Still a massive number. Even then, Knight couldn't post bond and stayed in custody for the rest of his trial. Now, when you look back at Melly's situation, the comparisons get complicated. Some say the denial of bond makes sense because of the severity of the accusations, while others insist the delays and the long pre-trial detention are unfair. What's clear is that this case has no easy answers, and there's still no sign of it wrapping up anytime soon. And that officially brings this video to a close. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next breakdown. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.